Okay, I think we are live. I just wanted to comment, since everybody else is commenting, on the pick for the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh. Now, the actual pick, Brett Kavanaugh was not the person I would have chosen. He probably would have been a little further down the list, in fact. Although I think it's kind of stupid of all of us to pretend that we're experts on these justices. That the majority of people commenting on this have only known about any of these people for like a week, 2 weeks, so whenever Kennedy retired, you know. So I did discuss this, I think, earlier this week, and in my opinion, one thing that I forgot to mention that Tom Binns mentioned on his stream earlier was that Kavanaugh was associated with the Ken Starr investigation. And I guess I have to throw this little problem in there. Anybody associated with the Starr investigation, in my opinion, must be some sort of joke or some sort of corrupt piece of crap. So I can't really support this pick as much as I would want to, just to see. Now, there is one thing that I would have no problem seeing him on the Supreme Court for one reason, which is that it didn't matter if Donald Trump would have picked Tony the Tiger from the Kellogg's Frosted Flakes commercials. The liberals would have still labeled him as basically the enemy of all mankind and some sort of monster. And indeed, they've already started this ridiculous demonstration outside. That we'll watch a little of it because it's apparently like over an hour long. You know, people. It's a Tuesday night or it's a Monday night right now. You would think people had things better to do than to stand outside and yell about a pick that will, it's the Senate's choice whether they want to approve him or not. I don't remember ever protesting when Elena Kagan was nominated for the Supreme Court. I probably would not have voted for her, but I don't think she's the worst person in the world. Or Sotomayor. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think, was nominated when I was probably 7 years old. Hi, Metadata Man. I saw you were in the chat. But you're gonna have. That's why I made that graphic above me. That they're gonna pretend that this is basically the end of the world as we know it. They're gonna. it's like just like when the Trump tax cuts got passed. Just like when Trump ended up. What was the other thing that they said would be the end of mankind as we know it? Pulling out of the Paris Peace Accord, the Paris Climate Accord. They said, that must be, if he would have, an aside there. Pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, they thought, that would be the end of the world, like immediately. People started panicking immediately, even though the Paris Climate Accord doesn't restrict any emissions for India or China for the next 10 years. So it was a meaningless policy, by the way, the Paris Climate Accord. I by mistake said the Paris Peace Accord. If Trump were to pull out of the peace accord we have with Vietnam, that would be pretty funny. He would say, "No, I don't want to. Fuck them. This is for John McCain assholes," or something. He would never do it, of course. It would also be stupid, but if that would have happened, that would be something I think would be really something to behold. So true, the left will try like hell to hold off or block anyone he puts up. Well, I think people have to be realistic about this. And I was thinking about this while listening to a couple other people's reactions to this. The two people that I've listened to so far, I think, are Styx Hexenhammer and Tom Binns. And with Tom, he brought up the whole issue with Ken Starr, which I probably had already known that one of the justices was associated with it. I just didn't remember it was Kavanaugh. And the Starr investigation was a joke where they tried to get President Clinton impeached for one of his lesser crimes, which was perjury and suborning perjury of Monica Lewinsky. There were things that he did that were much, much worse for national security than boning his intern, which is also not a good thing. But for example, he basically took hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash donations in envelopes from Chinese military officials visiting the White House. And yet, for some mysterious reason, the Starr investigation never addressed that. Don't you think that's a little odd that these people that the press was making out to be these Republican boogeymen, these basically like the Salem witch trials persecutors, they never actually tried to nail Bill Clinton on the worst crime of his presidency, taking all of that money from China, which is, it's good for China. By the way, I know you guys think I hate China. I don't hate China. I'm just saying it's a problem when you have Chinese officials bribing the president of the United States and him releasing missile technology through his deputy national security advisor to be basically given to the Chinese in order to launch satellites. Satellites that Pakistan also happens to use. So I really do think that people have to be realistic here, that Brett Kavanaugh is probably going to be, a mediocre justice. And people also, I was listening to Clay Travis a couple weeks ago discussing Anthony Kennedy retiring, and he said that Anthony Kennedy in his mind was, the kind of image of the right type of Supreme Court justice, where like half of the time you really, really agree with him, and half of the time you completely disagree with him. So you don't want a chief justice, or not chief justice, like an associate justice. You don't want any justice on the Supreme Court that you think would be a complete Looney Tune that you absolutely never want on there. But think of the converse. If you had, or the obverse, whatever it was, the opposite. Think of the opposite case. If you have somebody in the Supreme Court who agrees with you 100% of the time, you can't pack the court with 9 of those people. Like a lot of conservatives really love Clarence Thomas, but if we had a Supreme Court entirely of Clarence Thomases, you would have an originalist Supreme Court, but there are certain rulings that the original intent of the Constitution does not take into consideration. So you can't have one person represent the entire scope of the Supreme Court. So Clarence Thomas is one of those judges. Samuel Alito, I think, is the other one. Scalia was one of the justices in that vein. So then you need kind of these Weasley guys like Anthony Kennedy and John Roberts, I think is the guy's name, who are a little. Those guys are weasels. They kind of try to find ways to to say fuck it. We need to make up something new. But not entirely new, not completely inconsistent with the Constitution. Now, on the other end of the spectrum is Ginsburg and Sotomayor, and Kagan is a little closer to them. Those are people that are activist judges. They believe in a set of values that they think effectively fulfills the real vision of the Constitution that the Founding Fathers would have probably approved of if they were living today. So that's an approach I don't really agree with, but it is something that exists around the world. It's not as if this is something that is completely unique to the United States, where people believe that the Constitution is not perfect and that there need to be changes or something. However, you hear from them all the time, like these opinions and whatever that are really, they have. You can't have opinions that literally have nothing to do with the Constitution or any written law or any standard. You can't have just writing things out of thin air that you think are the best thing for society. And there are plenty of judges that do that. Not only on the liberal side, by the way. There are plenty of. Roy Moore, a conservative judge, is another excellent example of that. Somebody who basically says, well, I'm just going to represent my views, and the rest of the world can pretty much, suck it. That's Roy Moore. That's why when Roy Moore was running for Senate, I was like, well, I mean, I'm not really into this type of crap. So anyway, before I close, because there's not much more to cover. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on the Supreme Court. I mean, give me a break. Skex02 says metadata. Ann Coulter thought Kavanaugh was the best pick. I mean, she's entitled to her opinion. I don't think so. I thought, like Ryo Shiska says, I thought Coney Barrett would have been the right choice. But so a lot of Americans don't take the Starr investigation's failure as seriously as I do. I thought it was one of the biggest. When I started reading about it, this isn't something that I've known about for years and years because, since about 2 years ago, I started really combing through a lot of the issues that have to do with what happened under the Clintons. And, I think in retrospect, that was a disgraceful time for our country. It was a disgraceful time because of Clinton. It was a disgraceful time because of the Republicans. I think everybody should probably. I mean, that's why when Newt Gingrich ran for president, I thought, if this guy's our president, God help us. And I was thinking about not voting that year. New York Times said an hour ago that Kavanaugh was his pick. I mean, yeah, but he made the pick at 9 p.m. So of course they knew an hour ago, dude. Do you mean an hour before he announced it? I mean, people leak shit. What are you gonna do? China is only where it is because the globalists gave them everything. Well, in any case, let's hear some of this protest. You see Kirsten Gillibrand whispering in the background, "Oh, how much fucking donor money do you think we're gonna make off of this bullshit? Oh my god, I'm gonna buy myself some new fucking some sort of I don't know what the fuck Kirsten Gillibrand would do with her money, like some Chanel shoes or something. I don't even know if Chanel makes shoes. That's how out of touch I am with stupid fashion. Let me see here. So. Yeah, that was a demonstration. Just these people yelling and screaming about the pick. And listen, I get it that you're angry because you're intemperate morons, but you have to get over it. So he has to pick somebody. You fucking idiots. He can't just sit there and say, well, we'll just have the Supreme Court work with one less justice. It's sort of like when we'll just treat it the same way as the Mets do when they put their pitcher out there and he can't pitch. Like they always do this. I mean, this year I think they're a mess. I haven't been following that closely, but I've heard that the Mets are like some sort of like bizarre disaster that only happens once in a while in baseball. I should get back into baseball. Not that the NBA is a complete joke. So, yeah, this just keeps going on and on and on.
And Kavanaugh has made clear he would give shocking deference to presidential immunity and basically give Donald Trump a free pass with the Mueller investigation. Democracy is at risk with the Kavanaugh nomination. This nomination is an outrageous partisan power grab against women and all Americans by a historically unpopular president, and we cannot let it stand. Trump and his allies must follow the McConnell rule, and we must ensure that we defeat Brett Kavanaugh. All our rights are at stake. Roe v. Wade, healthcare, democracy itself. Thank you. It's now my great honor by a historically unpopular.
I mean, is that really a protest? Is that really a protest if you're cheering and you're just like whispering in each other's ears? Like, I mean, this is not how a protest works. These people are not actually angry. They know that it's basically, I mean, it's a Monday night. Okay, on a Monday night, you're out there protesting against a pick that, you know, your job is to go to the Senate and either vote for or against the pick. And, you know, if you have a case to build it in the Senate. You know, hear the guy out. I would not really care if the guy got rejected by the Senate, and I'll tell you why. Because the fact of the matter is that the people who would vote him down, if they are Democrats. So there's two possibilities. If there are not enough Republicans to vote for Brett Kavanaugh, then yeah, this will reflect pretty badly on Donald Trump himself. so that would be a problem, obviously. So let's say you had John McCain not voting, and you had Rand Paul not voting. That could happen. And you know, in this case, I think I would side with I'd probably side with Rand Paul instead of Donald Trump. If Rand Paul was against him, and if Rand Paul was for him, you know, you kind of have to question Rand Paul's judgment, because then this guy is kind of anybody associated with the Starr investigation. This is me. That's all I have to say. I could be, you know, you can call me an asshole, whatever you want. If you were involved in the Starr investigation and you had the chance to nail him on China at that stage, okay, if you were around for the 96 through 98 period of the Clinton administration and you had the chance to nail his ass to the fucking wall because of his accepting cash payments from China, then I can't take you seriously. I'm not going to extend any support. I wouldn't care if he got picked, and I wouldn't mount a protest on a Monday night like these ridiculous people who are just there virtue signaling the whole time. Most of them white women, and then I think apparently there was some sort of scuffle, which I haven't seen yet because I'm not going to watch this entire video of people screaming incoherently. But I think that I heard people shouting Black Lives Matter over these speakers. So that in my opinion is a bit of an overreaction, because ultimately somebody is going to be on the Supreme Court, and it's not going to be somebody that you necessarily like. Okay, so what else is left to say? Well, let's say that the Republicans do vote as a quorum for this person, and but there's not enough of them. Let's say Murkowski and Collins don't vote for Brett Kavanaugh, which I think it's possible they will vote for him. But let's say for argument's sake that they don't vote for him, and they're not up for election anyway. And the people who also vote against him happen to be Joe Manchin, Joe Donnelly of Indiana, and then there's Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, John Tester of Montana, and Claire McCaskill of Missouri. Well, if those people torpedo Trump's pick, he will start going nuclear on them, and they'll probably not have much to stand on for the election. Because listen to this, okay? And you progressives listen too. Those centrist to center-right Democrats, their whole platform is on how, I can get along with Donald Trump and whatever. I can get, you know, I can reach across the aisle or whatever. What Donald Trump will then come and do and say, well, I try to reach across the aisle to these idiots, and they didn't help me at all. Okay, what they're doing, you don't like. If you live in one of those states, you know that John Tester has been running ads, touting legislation where he's agreed with Donald Trump, which is, you know, it's bizarre if you think about Democrats, you know, advertising that they have shared legislation with Donald Trump. If you live in Illinois or one of those other blue states, that must sound like surreal to you that there are Democrats campaigning about how close they are to Donald Trump. But that's exactly the way it is. And Joe Manchin, the same idea. Joe Manchin, by the way, the Democrats tried to primary him, progressive Democrats, and he destroyed their person, Paula Jean Swearingen. He won by 2-1 vote, and he's not exactly, it's not as if all the Democrats in West Virginia like him. But I was surprised by how well he did. I thought he would probably do a lot worse. He would still win and pull it out, but I thought he would do a lot worse. You look at some of these other states where Trump is gaining popularity, such as my state, Ohio, and the senators who will vote against this pick will have a problem. This Sherrod Brown in Ohio, I think he will. I think he could probably still pull it out. I think Sherrod Brown, for some reason, has a good reserve of support, but I think he could have a problem if he voted against this pick. And if he voted for the pick, he also has a problem. There's a major issue with running as a Democrat this year in some of these states. Okay, the states of Missouri. I'm talking about the Senate specifically, not if you're in the House, because the House doesn't even matter as far as the Supreme Court's concerned. It's the Senate that confirms the picks. So understand it this way, okay? If you're serving for one of these states like North Dakota, on the one hand, you need to show that you have sufficient common ground with Donald Trump in order to draw people who voted for him in 2016. And that's not going to be easy for some of these people. On the other hand, you also have to show enough opposition to him to draw the people who are diehard Democrats and they're literally the people organizing your party in your state. And that's also not very easy. It's not easy to balance those two. So you can't appear to be a total Trump opponent, and you can't appear to be one of his puppets. And I'm talking about specifically the states of Missouri, North Dakota, Montana, and West Virginia. Possibly also Michigan. I'd say is still leaning for the Democrat at this point. You could also throw in Ohio. Oh yeah, Indiana. The guy in Indiana, Joe Donnelly, is going to have a real problem getting elected this year. And that's even if they do approve this Supreme Court pick, then they still have a problem, because then they have to go to their Democratic base and say to them, look, I had to approve the Supreme Court pick that the entire media has been telling you is basically going to turn the court into something out of, the Spanish Inquisition. So it's a very rough situation if you're a Democratic senator running for re-election in any of those states this year. So I don't know what's going to happen from here on out. I'm personally not an expert on, how they go and screen these people. I've seen a couple of these hearings, and eventually they just degenerate into just complete, jerk-offery. It's just ridiculous, especially when Cory Booker is involved. So that's about it. Please leave your thoughts. Larry Gerke, hello. Just my stupid opinion. I was in his chat probably like 25 minutes ago. Ryu Shiska, Metadata Man, Skex02, I don't know where you went. I think that's about it. I'll see you guys later. I wanted to comment on Brexit today, but I don't know if I'll get a chance, because I do have to get a move on. But let me know what you think about the Supreme Court pick. So comment, like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys later.